Welcome to Daily Drive for Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. I'm Jake Neer in Detroit, in for Kellen Walker. Today on the show, Toyota doubles down on Texas with a multi-billion-dollar commitment to American manufacturing. A Chinese EV brand makes its first move into North America. And President Trump hands out pardons to people who modified their vehicle emission systems. Plus, Teradar CEO Matthew Carey joins us to talk about the new sensor type that works when radar and LiDAR fall short.
I don't want to be driving through fog and then my car hands it back to me and I'm like, no, this is like when I want you to have it, right?
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Toyota is making a big bet on American manufacturing. The automaker's board has approved a $3.6 billion expansion of its San Antonio truck plant. The plan is to double its size and move most Tacoma production back to the U.S. from Baja California, Mexico by 2030. The move is part of Toyota's existing commitment to invest $10 billion in the U.S. The automaker says it will add 2,000 jobs. It also helps chip away at what we at Automotive News found to be an $8.6 billion annual tariff bill. The Tacoma has been built exclusively in Mexico since 2021. We'll have more on this story in a minute. Chinese EV startup Leapmotor has entered Mexico using Stellantis' local dealership network to distribute its B10 electric crossover. Stellantis holds a 21% stake in Leapmotor, and the partnership is central to how the Chinese brand is expanding globally. Mexico is a deliberate first step. The company calls it, quote, the start of its expansion into the North American market. Leapmotor plans 2 more models for Mexico. And President Trump has pardoned 6 people he says were prosecuted for, quote, fixing their car, specifically altering vehicle emissions control devices. Trump didn't name the individuals. The move comes alongside a June 29th presidential memorandum directing the EPA to explore easing rules around modifying emission systems. Trump framed it as a cost of living issue. He argues the certification process for aftermarket parts takes too long. It's part of a broader pattern. Trump has issued more than 1,600 acts of clemency since the start of his second term. And those are today's headlines. You can find more on all those stories over at autonews.com. Joining me now to talk more about Toyota's big investment in Texas is our own Larry Velaquette, who covers Toyota and other automakers for us at Automotive News. Larry, welcome back.
It's so good to make a midweek appearance, Jay.
It's always a treat, man. And of course, you can hear Larry every week on our Weekend Drive edition of the show as well. Larry, though, we couldn't wait for this one. We had to talk about it. I guess my big question is why? Why is Toyota doing this?
Well, Toyota is doing this because it is maxed out on production capacity, not only in the U.S., but globally. It has products it wants to build, and it has no place to build them. They made more than 10 million vehicles last year, well over 10 million vehicles last year. They sold every one they made. They have additional room to grow their sales to. So the long and short of it, just from a business standpoint, exclusive of any tariff considerations, they need more production capacity. Now, tariff considerations weigh into this, right? The Tacoma, which is what they're going to move part of the production into the U.S. from Mexico, from a plant in Baja California, to this plant in San Antonio by 2030. Part of this is because of tariffs. They had their 4th best year last year on record, and they lost money in the U.S., which is crazy. They had the 4th best ever sales and lost money in the U.S. because of tariffs. There are 2 very large drivers of that, and that's the 25% tariff on vehicles coming out of Canada, specifically the RAV4, their number 1 seller, and the 25% tariff coming out of Mexico, which is their number 3 seller, the Toyota Tacoma. So by moving this into the U.S., the production into the U.S., at least some of it, It's a tariff mitigation strategy.
And we've been talking a lot about the RAV4. Does this in any way give them room to maneuver on that?
Perhaps you're going to have a plant now it's not until 2030. Let's remember that's 4 years down the road.
Yeah.
You're going to have a plant in Baja, California that was built went online in 2003. So it's still a relatively new plant. And the question is what's going to go in there. They haven't said. I'm not sure they know yet. It's possible because it's in Mexico and Mexico has free trade agreements with most of the world, they can literally put anything there. So it may not serve the U.S. market, but it may. It may be the place that they build their Maverick fighter. If they convert that plant to a unibody plant from its current body on frame configuration, that's a possibility. If that's the case, then that could potentially allow them room for a fourth plant globally for RAV4. They could cycle that in, make that a very efficient plant, basically build on demand, and add a small commercial van on the same platform. And now we've seen Toyota do this flex manufacturing in Georgetown and these vehicles on a similar platform. That's a good possibility.
Larry Veliquette, all over the story for us at Automotive News. You can read more of his reporting on it at autonews.com. Larry, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake.
Now let's turn to Teradar. It's a tech startup developing a sensor that combines LiDAR level resolution with radar's ability to cut through difficult weather. Since CEO Matthew Carey appeared last on Daily Drive from CES in January, the company has been running its Summit sensor on automaker test tracks across Europe and the US. It's already landed a paid development program with a German automaker, with a second expected soon. Automotive News Europe managing editor Doug Bolduc caught up with Carey late last week.
Hello, everyone. Doug Bolduc with Automotive News, and I am happy to be together again with the CEO of Teradar, Matthew Carey, who we spoke with at CES, and there was a lot going on for the company, Matt, at that particular event. Can you catch us up on what you've been up to and how things are progressing with the technology and with your conversations with some very interesting people?
Absolutely, yeah. So last time we chatted at CES, we were unveiling Summit, which is our high premium sensor. And so what we're doing at Teradar is we're inventing a new type of sensor that provides the best of both worlds between a radar and a LiDAR, right? So we're able to see through difficult environments like rain and snow and sleet and fog. We can see through the front fascia of a car, but at the same time provide the resolution of a LiDAR. So think of being able to pick up a child who wandered into the street 200 meters away at night in the rain and being able to provide that level of safety. And we were unveiling that product the last time we talked at CES. We got to display it to different OEMs. And since then, we've been busy. So partially due to those meetings at CES, of course, OEMs come in, they see a wonderful demo in a hotel room or out on the street, and they're like, this is great, but it's CES, so why don't we get it onto our own test tracks? And that's literally where we spent the last 4 or 5 months going in Europe onto the test tracks there, the abandoned airfields from the Cold War, and then also in the Midwest and all over the US as well. So taking our sensor, it's an amazing experience. You get to hand it to an OEM, they strap it to the front of their car with their folks, and you see your sensor driving around on the test track gathering data. It's a very exciting moment. And then the way that you tell you're actually making progress is and the OEMs are interested is are they willing to give you resources? Are they willing to give you money and run you through the rigorous kind of purchasing process? And so we've already announced for one OEM that they've selected us, and we're starting a paid development program, which is a huge deal on the roadmap to a bid, and we can talk a little bit about that. But then it looks like we'll be entering a second one here shortly. So very excited, making real progress and learning a lot as we go as well. OEMs are never afraid to tell you where you could be better.
And I think part of this process too, as you do this, you also end up inheriting a champion, if someone in the company likes the technology, they end up kind of being almost like a mini spokesperson for your technology within the organization, correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's not an easy thing to get. You need someone fighting for you, right? And to your point, they want to bring the technology inside. But what matters, and we announced it was a German OEM, and then of course we'll be transitioning to hopefully a US OEM shortly. You have that internal champion who wants to bring in the technology, but it's not just about the technology. It's about what is it that you bring to the vehicle that makes it easier to sell, makes it safer, makes it better than their competitors, right? And in our case, it's giving these OEMs a sensor that allows them to provide advanced autonomy, like level 3, or advanced safety, not just in nice environments that, we might drive in California, but as you know, in Detroit or in Boston, where the environments aren't so nice. And at the very moment where, the car might be wanting to hand it back to you is actually the moment that you need the system working the most, right? And so not just implementing the technology, but also champions inside that say, man, if we get this capability, like this will change the way that we're able to sell our vehicles and people are able to use them both from advanced features, but also from a safety perspective.
Yeah, because a lot of the technology that we're using right now, some of it is good, but sometimes it leaves you feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Like it'll fail when it's very rainy or when it's very foggy. And I think that one of the keys that you're trying to present with this technology is that this will work in those instances. So those times when you really want an assist, you'll get it.
That's exactly right. So you can kind of think of it as you want sensors that provide their information in different ways. And you look at a camera, they work like our eyes do. And so it makes sense that when we have trouble seeing, cameras also have trouble seeing. And even if you look at a LiDAR, the wavelength that uses is actually pretty close to what you and I see each other in. That's why a LiDAR point cloud kind of looks so natural. But it also means it suffers from a lot of the same things that a camera or our eyes do, right? And so that's why radars traditionally have been brought in, because it's a different wavelength. It makes total sense. There are physics limits on the resolution that can be provided. And this is also why Teradar makes sense, because you want to get away from just these set kind of visual style wavelengths into something else to provide that level of safety, because you want redundancy based on different information, not just the same information over again. And so pairing a Teradar sensor with, say, a camera is incredibly powerful because you get that redundant information that in case one falls out due to weather, you're able to still, provide safety and advanced features and autonomy for the vehicles that we're driving in, which is, that's what I want. I don't want to be driving through fog and then my car hands it back to me and I'm like, no, this is like when I want you to have it, right?
Yeah, you want to feel comfortable in those kinds of tight situations. And when we spoke at CES, we're tracking towards hopefully having a bid ready for this year and then being start of production in 2028. Based on the successes that you've had so far in 2026, are you still tracking in that direction?
We are. So I anticipate that we'll actually be putting in 3 bids now, not one. So we have a bit more visibility on that. So that's exciting. So we'll likely be putting in a bid at the end of this year, and then likely 2 bids in Q1 and maybe one at the end of Q1, early Q2. So we now have visibility on 3 bids that we're being invited for. Folks are seeking information. This is part of what the paid development program is. You really, especially as a smaller company, you want to see that to know that this OEM is indeed serious about you and not actually just saying nice things to avoid hurting your feelings. Some OEMs don't care about hurting your feelings. Some do. It depends, on the culture. But we appreciate the direct feedback regardless. So yeah, we are on track for that. And then we're working with tier ones to produce our sensors. So our reference design for our B sample will be complete later this year. That's our full B1 sample with our custom ASIC. And then different tier ones over the course of 27 will be completing their own specific B sample. And that is for production in 28.
Well, thanks for that, Matt. And what about your goals for the rest of 2026? What are you hoping to see the company achieve as we are sort of at the midpoint or a little past the midpoint of the year? What are the things you'd like to achieve and say this year has been a success?
From our point of view, it's all about that OEM traction. So we want to complete that bid later this year, and I'd frankly like to win another paid development program with yet a third OEM. So we're working very hard on that, and then finally the big thing is completing that final B sample. And at that point, you really have something that is production mature, where in many ways it's actually easier to make once you have those 3 chips that contain our secret sauce than a standard imaging radar, right? You don't have to put the antennas on the PCB. The packaging gets easier, a whole bunch of like very technical manufacturing pieces, including the SMT process. So I'm very excited to get to that point. Right now we consume, we use that NVIDIA Orin in order to stand in to do the processing. And while it's a great unit, it's not ideal for what we want. So I'm excited to get to that B1 sample, to get that first bid out. We're going to learn a lot. Bids are very difficult to do, even with the OEM really kind of rooting for you. And then finally, I would like to close an additional paid development program, hopefully to be announcing it to you earlier than CES this upcoming year.
Okay, so the goal is 3 paid development programs and getting closer to getting those bids in 3 bids.
That's exactly right. So we'll submit a bid this year. That is the thing. So it will be submitted. Yeah. I love goals where like they're definitive. So you can hear it from me, but like we're going to get a bid in this year.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to check in with us and give us an update on how the company is progressing. For Matt Carey, CEO of Teradar, this is Doug Bolduc with Automotive News. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Doug.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Jake Neer. Thanks to our own Larry Velaquette and Yang Jian for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on Toyota's U.S. manufacturing strategy, Chinese EV expansion in North America, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.